Hello, YouTube. My name is Flazukas, and this is going to be the last part of my reaction to Tectone reacting to my video. Let's begin.
Streams for Wuthering Waves on the exact date of May 22nd from 10 to 12 and May 23rd from 10 to 12 p.m. CST. That was fully disclosed, and also 100% of the revenue I received from the sponsors, I also gave all of that back to my chat in the form of giveaways. So I don't know what other free-to-play content creator he's talking about. Yeah, I really don't know who this video could be. As far as I'm concerned, I don't really think there's any predatory free-to-play streamers or content creators currently on the platform, because if there were, I would have already called them out.
So, essentially, suggesting that because he gave the money to the community, therefore he didn't take any money from Withering Waves. Therefore, it's not predatory to suggest that he is free to play and doesn't benefit from the company or from. Yeah. And I mean, fair. I mean, obviously, I'm not going to knock him for giving back to the community. I think that's a very important thing. I'm obviously somebody that has socialistic tendencies. So for me, that's very important. If you're making an insane amount of profit every year and if you have a little to give, and there are people that are struggling, or you can identify aspects of your community that need money, or you do it, equally and distribute it throughout, then yeah, I have to give Tectone, his accolades. Like, that's not a bad thing. I'm not going to sit here and criticize that action, but it doesn't make you immune to criticism. Okay, it doesn't mean that you're not predatory still, because even though you're not making money off that, you are making money just by posing as a free to play player when you are obviously generating more views, more engagement by that action. You are trying to be more relatable. These are tactics that are used. And yes, I am calling Tectone out. I'm calling anybody out, including myself, anybody on YouTube, period. There's a bit of sales aspects to this. And what I'm trying to highlight is that nobody is your friend. I'm not your friend. Tectone's not your friend. Amtash is not your friend. Asmongold is not your friend. And whatever they're selling specifically to profit. And they don't care about you, technically. They can give back to you. Okay? Doesn't mean that they're like psychopathic. Doesn't mean they're not empathetic. Doesn't mean they're not sympathetic. I can't speak to that. But their actions speak louder than their words. They're very profitable. They're very successful. They're not just one aspect successful. They're multiple. Their success is multiplicable on YouTube, side businesses, or other things that they do, merchandising and stuff like that. They make a lot of money, and they have a lot of investment. And if they continue to do this, they're going to make even more money and even more investment, and they know it. And that's not wrong. That's American. I get that. That is Americana. I'm going to call that out as greed. No different than Bobby Kotick. Now, you can criticize my words. You can say that I'm incorrect, but I think my logic is sound.
So I'm really not sure who this guy's talking to.
You are deplorable.
How?
You are no different.
This month, but the great almighty Tectone being compared to a demon. This is a new one.
You are I wanted to use very animated language to get my point across. Unfortunately, not everybody listens to just somebody talking in a mundane tone. So I needed to, use language, and I do believe that a lot of people that do sales, are like the worst kind of people. I understand the necessity of sales. Like, I get it. And you have to disguise yourself as a good person to sell things. You cannot be like a snake. You will not sell anything. So there's always this, it's almost like an act. It's almost like being an actor. And you have to appreciate it because it is a skill. I don't deny that. But when you're talking about video games and using that tactic in video games as something that is a hobby of mine and I'm part of that community, I'm going to call it out. Like it or not, because I will never use those tactics. I will never use those tactics. That is, and doesn't matter, right? I'm just one person. Just because I'm not going to use it doesn't mean somebody else is not going to take advantage of it and be successful. But I will criticize it and I will call it out. And maybe Tectone is not, these things. Maybe he's a well-intentioned, good-mannered person, and he means well. And maybe I'm misguided, misinformed, um, about the entire situation. I doubt it. And even if, you know, 99% of other people are like this, maybe Tectone is the exception. Maybe he's a perfectly fine, reasoned person, and he's not what I describe in the video. But most salespeople are. The absolute reason their profit videos because reimburse.
You spend money, you're evil. I would like to go down and say it once again, and feel free to prove me if I'm wrong. I don't, and I know pretty much every creator in this space. There's not a single creator in this space who is being 100% reimbursed for every pull they do in this game. If they were, I would have already talked about it because that's what I do, and that's why companies fucking hate me. Yeah, so that's just like that. Just like doesn't exist.
I think we've already spoken to this previously about the 100% um, refunded or getting all the money back for a lot of these polls, right? I don't know enough about the business, and obviously I'm being educated now. And I'm going to take Tectone's word that he knows a lot of people in the industry more than I do, clearly. Uh, but even if they're not getting directly refunded back, again, we go back to this free to play thing. There's a choice to why these people who are choosing to play games free to play are doing it. It's a tactic being used to entice people to watch their videos. Now, in terms of actually spending money in acting like it's their own money and they're not getting any kind of sponsors or back end deals from somebody else, that part of it I don't believe is true. They have some kind of motivation for that action. Okay, and the only other alternative is they're addicted and they have a gambling problem, which could be the case, which is still equally as bad and not something that I mentioned in my video, and it probably is worth mentioning. Maybe they suffer from a gambling addiction, and that's the reason why they would do something like that. And that's nothing to be um called out against. It's a debilitating disease that needs to be acknowledged and dealt with, and obviously gotchas can exploit that. This has been the issue with loot boxes in video games, and then now gotcha, like, in essence this is why these games can be very, very destructive, which is why I criticize the free to play model, which is why I criticize people spending money and then getting reimbursed by a company, all and then acting like they're they're not getting help or they're not getting incentivized to do it. And then whatever people they have essentially got into the environment, maybe unfortunately develop a gambling addiction. And I think this needs to be pointed out. A lot of these individuals who watch Tectone, Mtashed, and Asmongold are young, adolescent kids um, that are easily manipulated and easily coerced. And if you develop these tendencies as an adolescent, as somebody that's younger and not as an adult, they can be even more destructive. They can lead to even more issues in the future. And I'm not saying that that's on them specifically, because we can look at social media, we can look at a lot of things as to exposures for adolescents, but it doesn't help. It just perpetrates it, and they can say that their numbers don't indicate that. Well, YouTube can't track those numbers, so they won't ever see those numbers to suggest that they're under a certain age group. But we all know that that is the case. I frequent discords of video games, and a good majority of them are younger kids, and their audience is younger. So maybe I'm not saying everything I need to say. So if content creators are pulling on these and they're not getting refunded by the companies, then they're probably suffering from some kind of addiction, um, which is not good. And if they're not suffering from an addiction, then they're getting paid by the company or some other means. They think they're going to get incentivized. They're not doing it for the love of the game. I am, okay? But I'm also addicted to video games. Therefore, I probably have a gambling addiction as well, if you want to, have a little bit of self-identification here. So I don't have healthy patterns as well. And I don't try to advocate for that. I don't try to publicize it either. I'm not here making videos on me pulling for gotcha, um, partly because of that as well. But I find value in this, and I have found a way to play these games and do it responsibly to the extent that I can, although none of it can be very responsible because they're all gotcha and they can be very destructive and predatory.
I would like this guy to continue what he's saying, but why are free to play creators an issue?
Because that's
Hey, I do this for love. I do this out of the goodness of my heart. Yeah, no, I agree. I work on
Knowledge is as vast as the universe.
I work on exposure. It's good.
and yet so here's what I want. I understand that he obviously works to get paid, and that this is their job. Like I've already said that about in my first video. I've already highlighted that. That's the same with Asmongold. That's the same with Mtashed. It is their job. They're not your friends. They're there to provide content, and that is all they're doing. They could care less about the game. If they say how many times they love the game in a video, if you're on their live streams and they say how much they like the game and the game is great, the game is fantastic, they're saying it because they're working. I don't want to make this comparison, but if you hire a sex worker and they tell you that they like you, that you look great, that they want to be with you, you have to understand they're working. I mean, I'm just saying. And if they're not doing it for their job, then they're addicted. And neither of those two things are good. And yet, I make a video and I try to be critical, and yet all I get is people trying to defend their position when there is no defensible position, and the acknowledgement that this system is flawed. And as long as like, so I guess the pushback could be like, well, what do you want me to do? Every time I make a video, you want me to have a disclaimer? That would be nice. That would be a good thing, I think. That would be a start. But I understand that that's not, reasonable or going to happen on a regular basis. So I guess we could have a discussion. I guess that could be a debate. I don't know what the answer is specifically. I mean, I've made videos in the past and I've tried to always say, you know, anytime that I play these gotchas that, they're definitely destructive. That video games can be very addictive. Like I've made those statements and I continue to make those statements because I think it's very important to acknowledge that while also understanding that games can be fun. They can be very healthy as well. They can be a way to escape and stuff like that. I get that. So I don't expect these content creators to work for free, and they don't. Tectone's not working for free. He gets, he has subscribers. Asmongold has subscribers. MTAS has subscribers. Patreon or whatever else they use to monetize and to make money. They have an income. Okay, they're not at a loss for work right now. So them mentioning it is kind of pointless, in my opinion. But if we really want to have a debate, of course, I don't mean that. But at the same time, their job is their job. And they're not going to say that because it's sales. And they need to kind of like make it look good, make it look nice, make it look believable while doing their job, much like a sex worker would. And that's not the comparison to the succubus, although I guess now that I think about it, it could be. I surmise that you don't enjoy it, that this is just a job. And therefore, you're no different than a salesperson. And therefore, you're no different than Bobby Kotick or any.
And I play Wuthering Waves. That makes me an evil man and an evil salesman. Okay.
Yeah, I don't think it is specifically defined to Wuthering Waves. It could be any game that you play as a content creator right now. Unless you truly do love it and it's your passion or you're addicted to it, like we've acknowledged. Like that is the one thing I didn't mention before. If you're addicted to it, then yeah. Then you're doing it because you're addicted to it. But I don't think you're doing it because you love the game. Because you love it for just the game. You're doing it for content, which is your job.
I want to let him cook a little bit because he's getting on something real quick.
I think people really support video games.
I will be real. I don't think there's anything wrong with making content just to make money. I think when Ninja went to Mixer and collected what is it, like $50 million, I'm not going to call him an evil man, but sometimes you got to take care of yourself. I don't really.
Right. In spite of everything. Be damned the people that come into your community that are going to watch your videos as a free-to-play content creator and then get wrapped up in the gotcha of free-to-play games or predatory games and then have or develop a gambling addiction. No, it's not specifically on Tectone that they're going to develop that condition. They made the choice to watch the video. But if it's all wrapped in roses and, there is like this air of irresponsibility, like I didn't do it. I came into this community just trying to prove that you can play this game free to play. When they know, because I know, that these games are predatory and that they do entice people to spend money. Their whole systems are meant to do that. Even if Hoyoverse and Kuro Games do it better than most, they still have the tactic. They still have all these things that are scientifically proven to entice people to spend money. It's in those games. Does that make you a bad person? Well, I guess you have to look at your morals. Maybe to you, you're not a bad person. And I would suggest, from an American perspective, of course you're not. You're an opportunistic. You are an entrepreneur. You're making money wherever. You're, like he said, Ninja took a payday to go to Mixer. Good for him, right? Good for him. He took whatever came his way. And I'm sure Tectone will take whatever sponsor deals comes his way as well. And if he has to disclose them, he will. If he doesn't, he won't. Because guess what? It benefits him, regardless of everybody else. And that is the American way. No fault, no shame, no judgment. It is the American way. I'm just calling it out. And I just think that if we continue to have this philosophy in video games, well, we're going to continue to see what we've been seeing in video games, which is cancellations, the loss of creative talent, over microtransactions, over monetizations, the increase of paying for or the price of a video game and getting less value for it, and so on and so forth, and the dilution of it all, having come from a a niche genre when I was a kid to now being the most popular form of entertainment, I've seen how it's changed. And yeah, there are some benefits to technology. There's some benefits to indie development that is clear and very good for the industry. But there's also a lot of other things that have creeped in that are um, bad as well. And part of that is content creation. It is just creating an issue because of all these people who are just there to make money, regardless of the artistic integrity of the video game, or in the particular case of free to play games in their predatory cases, what could potentially result in people playing these games, um, and it not being fully disclosed.
Think there's anything wrong with making money from making content creation. And I think when people say the thing of, oh, you're just doing this for views, you're just doing this for money, well, I think they're just fucking idiots. You know, they're kind of just
That's nice. So we're trying to deduce people just to go from, because God forbid you do something with passion. You do something without thinking that how much money you can make from something, right? First. Obviously, yes, we all deserve to get paid a living wage. I'm not here suggesting that, people should just work for free, although we have plenty of interns that do. We've had a system of slavery in our country. All of those things are bad, and deplorable and inhumane, and I do not want that. But at the same time, if you're only doing it for money, then yes, I do think that that is bad.
idiots. Yeah. I mean,
And I don't consider myself an idiot for thinking that way, although I know that I'm the minority in the United States.
that's kind of what everybody does. The world sucks.
Right? The world sucks. Everybody does it, so why not? Everybody's jumping off a bridge, so let me jump off the bridge. Like, have some integrity, have some moral tact. But I know it doesn't enrich. I know it doesn't profit. I know it's not profitable. So get your bag while you can. I understand it. Ninja did it. Tectone does it, and whoever else is gonna do it.
Sucks and then you die, right? And finding a way to make money with something that you enjoy, I think is an overall good thing. This guy's really trying to make a point, really not sure what the point is.
I can't tell you what the difference is, but there are plenty of people. I can't tell you what the difference is, but there are plenty of people who are covering Wuthering Waves that are.
So this guy doesn't know the difference between a good guy and a bad guy, and he doesn't.
I don't think anybody knows, Tectone. You can't tell a good guy from a bad guy. You think you can. You can make a lot of assumptions as to who is a good guy or a bad guy, but a lot of times you're going to be wrong. Your neighbors, your friends are not all good guys. Period. I would challenge Tectone to identify a good guy and a bad guy from a crowd. And then I don't know how you prove it. You cannot prove it technically. Obviously, time has a way of resolving these things and figuring them out, but it's impossible. Right? So to criticize me for not being very clear, and there's a reason why I'm not being clear, because I don't know who is or isn't. I just know it's happening. And therefore, I'm going to at least touch upon it. I'm going to talk about it. I'm going to express my feelings about it. And I'm going to use words that are very expressive and animated so that my point is being made and that it cannot be dismissed. Or if it is, that's on you for dismissing it. But I'm using a tactic to make sure that people are listening.
Doesn't really know what's going on, but I'm telling you they're evil.
I do know what's going on in a lot of ways. And to be dismissed, I'm just going to suggest that maybe you don't understand what's going on. Maybe you've never been traumatized in your life or backstabbed or had people turn their back against you, and that all your relationships have been fruitful and healthy. But I don't live in that reality. And I know many people that also don't live in that reality. So you've just said on one end that the world is crazy and gone is going to crap, right? And then on the other end, you're suggesting that you know everything about people, because if you know the world is going to crap, then you know there are bad people that exist, and you technically have the ability to spot all good and bad people just face value. I can't do that either, but that doesn't mean I'm not going to generalize something that I think is an issue in the industry. Now, can I say that, Tectone is a bad person? No, I cannot. Can I say MTash is a bad person? No, I cannot. Can I say Asmongold is a bad person? No, I cannot. There is a very high chance that all three of these individuals that I just named are some of the most charitable, selfless, good-natured people in the entire world, and that they represent the best of humanity. A very high chance that that is possible. I hope that's true. And I might be wrong about these people, but all the other people that I don't know about that are doing this very same thing cannot be said about them. And so, but I don't know who they are. I can't identify them specifically, but I do know it exists, and it's not conspiratorial. It's not being insane. It's not me being an idiot. Of that ilk, and there's other that I.
Let me explain to you why free-to-play content creators are very important to the space, as well content creators with the proper disclosures. So free-to-play content creators are very important to showcase their full gameplay because they can show players who play these otherwise predatory games that you can still fully enjoy the game without spending money whatsoever. Okay, now what's very important is for those content creators to tell people how much they've played this game. And that's why whenever I do an update, I allow people to know how long I played in order to achieve the success that I achieved. Okay, so what this does is this does also help the company, but it also helps the player base to know that they don't have to spend money, but it will also help Kuro Games have more people playing the game, which will increase a very important category for games, which is player retention.
Okay, so this is a very important aspect. There is a couple parts of the business that don't involve people spending money, okay, if it's a free-to-play game. We all know that speculation exists. Most countries have a stock market, and if you have this player base that is consistent, that can be shown on a daily basis, that can be profitable for investors. You can get investors to invest in your company knowing that eventually they could be spenders, right? But there isn't any reality for a company to not want any of these people to spend, right? So this whole holier than thou approach to, well, I'm trying to provide a public service to the community by playing these games free to play, and then I fully disclose the time that I spent on playing them. Therefore, I am immune to criticism because I'm not doing it for any selfish or bad intention purposes. And none of these people that play the game are going to actually spend money. So therefore, it's all good. That's not reality. These people do spend money. The more you entice them in you being a very, and like you've already said this, and I don't know if you said it now or you say it later. Whatever community you go to, you're the number one content creator, Tectone. And when you become and you have that responsibility, that means the amount of people that you bring into that environment is large. And I can't know exactly how many people will spend money in that game. That basically have found it through you. But I can almost guarantee it's not zero. And therefore, based on your own philosophy, then yes, I do think it is nefarious. I do think it is bad because you are conveying to them that you can play these games free to play, and although you may be ignorant, although you may deny this, you know that the likelihood of them spending money is high. And that regardless of how many how much um, investors or speculative, I don't even know the word for it, how much goodwill a company can get by having, a player base be retained. Eventually they expect these players to spend money, and that is the end goal of this. It's not for them to continue to play free to play forever. Whether it be for a battle pass, whether it be for $1, whatever the amount is, they have an expectation to spend. And you know this, okay? And so this whole like dismissive attitude, this holier than thou approach is a facade. And it's partly why I'm calling it out. And it does kind of imply that you know what you're doing. And just admit it. I don't know how you do that in your videos, but you're not doing it right now, and you're trying to take this holier than thou approach, and I find it insincere. And listen, I admit that I'm wrong in some areas. I admit that I may not know the whole thing. You know more than I do, and yet your approach is still very sketchy.
And player retention they can sell to investors in
Yeah,
order to further continue developing their game.
yeah, right. But that's only so much. There's an expectation that these people will spend money eventually. Period. It doesn't just end at the speculative side of this business. That's a big part of it. I'm not denying that. And you can have that carrot for as long as you can hold on to it, as long as investors believe that they will spend money. Yes, you can invest a lot of development cost and a lot of years, but it's not forever. And that's not what sustains a company. There's plenty of these gotcha games that have end of services because they may have had a player base, but nobody's spending money in that player base. Although they can last longer because they have a player base, in hopes that they eventually can figure out a good monetization scheme for them to start spending money. But there is never the end result that they expect players to continue to play free to play forever. And all the whales in the world can't make up for, you know, the the cost. There's going to need to be the casuals that spend money as well.
Because the more players a game has, the more healthy it seems, and the more likely investors are to invest into a game.
Right. And a lot of that also is specific to um base cost games like Diablo 4 that have already had an upfront investment of people and not free to play games specifically. But I mean, in this current ecosystem, yes, free to play games can also benefit from it too. But a lot of it is your base game models, and then them having a very healthy player base can help investors or companies get investors to uh, increase their budgets and
Game or
stuff.
a company.
I never play a game completely free to play.
Any game free to play and it's completely fine. You don't need to buy a single skin in League of Legends. You don't need to buy a single skin in Fortnite. You don't need to drop a single dollar to do any pulls in Wuthering Waves.
This is the same guy that would ask for your subscribers, would ask for your support, saying that you can do everything free to play. So if that philosophy is true, Tectone, then you don't need anybody's support, right? And so therefore, everything you said about doing this for free, and do you expect content creators to do it for free? You're saying that, yeah, you expect developers to do it for free. That people that watch you don't actually have to spend any money ever on any of these games. Valorant, Overwatch, and Fortnite. It's a fallacy. It sounds good, Tectone. It sounds good. I know what you're trying to do to save face. And I'm not trying to be overly critical. I'm not. I'm trying to do the best I can with the knowledge that I have, knowing that I'm, just above average intelligence. I'm not a genius here, but it doesn't it doesn't match up, man. You can't just have Fortnite, Valorant, and all these other and Overwatch are not going to exist if there's never anybody spending. Overwatch just cut their PvE content because people stopped spending money in that game. Overwatch 2 was an absolute failure going free to play. Like, there's plenty of indicators that this system, this monetization schemes does not work if nobody ever pays for that the product. There's no way Fortnite would have had half as many collaborations with big successful IPs if none of them bought these skins or the battle pass each time. And for this like dismissive attitude to suggest that your community, the community that watches you, Tectone, doesn't have to buy any of these, you can say that. You can save face and say that all you want, but deep down you know what's going to actually happen.
If a game is free and you are playing it, you are directly supporting the company by increasing their player retention and also spreading the game by word of mouth.
That's not true. That's just not true. That only goes so far, and it's not the end game.
This guy has no idea what he's talking about.
I do have an idea what I'm talking about. You're just leaving out a big part of what the other part of the industry is.
And yeah, hopefully that makes sense with proof and not just random common hearsay while drooling from my bottom lip.
Well, first of all, everything you said was hearsay as well. So it's going to be a new trend, a new wave of increase, in my opinion, whether it be base product or all their other or watch.
Think about what?
Put it down in the comments below.
This is not an individual of a sound mind.
Right.
I actually feel bad for this guy.
A common tactic from a lot of content creators and obviously industry vets is to automatically dismiss people and call them mentally ill. Now it's the new word instead of the R word or any other slanderous term. They call them mentally ill. I've already said this in my first video. We're all mentally ill to some extent, okay? And to acknowledge that sooner the better, right? Because we all have problems. We all have things we need to work on. But I'm not as mentally ill as being implied by Tectone. I'm making logical arguments here. I am sleep deprived right now. I didn't get to sleep at all. Not that matters to anybody. I'm still making this video. And I'm doing the best I can, and I'm okay with that. But at the same time, it's not about mental illness. That's not why I'm having this debate. And I've already established on multiple levels, and I'm not trying to be redundant here, of why I know that Tectone is being dismissive. That he, although the words that are being conveyed are good and fantastic and will appeal to most, if not all, of his audience, they leave out a big portion of my arguments and my complaints and criticisms.
Because he's surely convinced that there's a conspiracy going on that just quite simply only exists in his own head. And I hope that God has mercy on his soul, but bro needs to be brought out of the kitchen. And maybe the dude should just stick to collecting more Mickey Mouse collectibles in the background, okay? Maybe we go back to the M&M factory and maybe we just put down the YouTube video next time before we upload it. Legit, if you have any questions on the ins and outs of content creation, feel free to ask me anytime. I love talking about it. But this guy, he's like a level 1 crook. I'm like a level 99 mafia boss. And I'm trying really hard not to laugh at how stupid that fucking video was. But that was just about the dumbest shit I've ever seen. Anyways.
Okay. Let me go back here 1 second.
But that was just talking about it. But this guy, he's like a level 1 crook. I'm like a level 99 mafia boss.
I don't really have anything to say to finish this off. I've said all the things I needed to say. But at the end of the day, I stand firm with what I have conveyed in my initial video and then my subsequent videos, and uh, that's where I'll leave it right now. Who knows what my next videos will be or how this is going to evolve. My name is Fazooka. If you like this content, like, subscribe. I'll see you in my next video. Thanks for watching. Bye for now.